a very special edition of Daily Delivery. Numerous fits and starts. The most notable of which lately is I can't get my computer to turn on. So we're doing this over the phone with Jeff Day. But you don't want to hear about my technical problems. You want to hear about the Wolves and Lynx ownership situation. Arbitrator ruling Monday in favor of Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez. Where are we with this now? What does this all mean for us, Jeff Day?
Well, we don't want to jump the gun and say that this means that they are now the owners of the Timberwolves, but it certainly puts them on that path. It puts them directly on that path. The only thing seemingly that could get in the way would be the NBA Board of Governors, who will have to approve this. But the panel's ruling essentially sets the stage for that. And because the NBA Board of Governors, I believe, has had to approve the previous two sales of tranches to, this what was a minority ownership group. I do think that you can't imagine a reason why necessarily it would be stopped. So I think what we would call this is it puts them at the finish line to become the owners of the Timberwolves and Lynx. It also sort of, I think, answers a lot of questions for the franchise that had been lingering while this private litigation played out away from public eyes. And it was a 2-1 vote. Because again, this is a private matter. A lot of information is not given to the public. What the reasoning was, how that reasoning came to be, who voted for which side. I was told in the lead up to this that typically an arbitration panel likes to get consensus. But in this instance, the way that the contract between the two parties was, it was stipulated that Taylor would get to pick one of the arbiters.
Right.
Lowry and Rodriguez would get to pick another of the arbiters, and then there'd be a neutral party. That was Judge Thomas Frazier, who served in that role. And so, I think there's a part of me that looks at it and thinks most likely each chosen arbiter went their respective ways, and Frazier was the breaking vote. Yeah. But what this all means for the team, I think, is it's like you want to say we have certainty now, but at the same time, much like any kind of situation like this that involves very powerful people, very influential people within the NBA, I don't think you say that anything is definitive until the Board of Governors approves this, and then it's official.
Sure. That makes sense. Let's play it out, though. We've been waiting. This process has played out for a long time. This was like March of 24 when Glenn Taylor put a halt to this and said, hey, you missed the payment. This triggers this clause. The team is no longer for sale. Honestly, it's been close to a year, 10 and a half months, basically, from that point. And it's been almost 4 years since the start of the sale of this team. And again, it's gone up considerably in value since then. Some people say it's close to double the value that they paid, the $1.5 million. They're saying it's closer to $2.53 billion now, which I imagine was a part of this whole process. But it does put some interesting pieces potentially in place now, because you look at it and say, okay, how does a potential Mark Lowry, Alex Rodriguez ownership look different than a Glenn Taylor ownership? And I think the two biggest things are potential for an arena and potential, there's just probably less certainty in this because it's new and these are not local owners.
That's an interesting point. I think I also look at it from the perspective of just freshness. I think there's an element of Taylor's I would have to imagine in professional sports, he's one of the longest tenured owners of any franchise. And people have their, obviously, I think, heated opinions about his ownership of the Wolves. I never viewed him as critically as others did. And this isn't because I work at the Star Tribune, which is owned by Mr. Taylor. I truly mean this. I just always thought the Wolves were cursed, so it was like a different thing.
Right.
And I thought that they always were somehow, just one of these franchises that just was destined to struggle.
Right.
I think when Laurie and Rodriguez were named as the owners, I mean, because again, Taylor wanted this. He kind of hand selected these owners to become the stewards of this franchise. He even said to Royce, I remember, that there was a different ownership group willing to pay more, but they wanted to move the team to Vegas. They wouldn't give assurances. So he wanted these guys. And I think that hopefully speaks to some kind of, whether it's wishful thinking or whether it's really baked into what these two want, but some kind of stability. And, the NBA, I think right now you look around the landscape of pro sports, I think you're looking at expansion versus relocation. I don't know whether you agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. And so all the talk about moving the team, there might be stadium demands. I think that's, Rochelle Olson and a number of other reporters for the Strip had a great story looking at just the overall nature of arena and stadium demands in Minnesota. And I just think that's constant white noise. If you're going to be a pro sports town, that is always be there. I look at more as what can these two bring that maybe makes you feel like the Wolves are moving in a positive direction. And I don't know that exactly. I think the fact that their finances have been at bare minimum, their finances have been called into question through this. And like you said, and like many others have sort of alluded to, how in the world was this difficult? How are you going to have a product where theoretically it has doubled in value almost through you doing nothing? And you're struggling to bring the money home. It just didn't make a lot of sense. Now, in the past year, they've added other investors. They got Michael Bloomberg involved in some minority stake. And, now they say they've got $950 million ready to ship out. That's the other part of this. Let's just take a quick segue. Let's segue through the purchase agreement that they entered into. Theoretically, at this point, they should be preparing to purchase their final 20% tranche from Taylor, taking over 100%, or as it said in the agreement, 99.999% of his ownership stake. I think what they are now that this arbitration panel has ruled in their favor, that should be back on. I don't know how the timeline works, because obviously the call option would have been about 2.5 months ago, and that didn't happen because the sale had been theoretically canceled. So I don't know when that will happen, or if maybe Taylor will just say, well, let's just move all the money now because it's done. But in some capacity, it's like, well, we're supposed to be moving into the final stretch of this. And, there was some vague language in the statement that came from the Timberwolves and links that alluded to, we're going to see kind of what this all means. I don't know whether there was kind of a hint in there of, we're going to see if this really holds up to scrutiny. But I was, again, told in the lead up to this that arbitration panels, when they issue these kind of rulings, this is not the thing you take to a court of appeals. It's built into a contract and everybody agrees to it. That's why it's private litigation. And so to me, it feels like, unless the NBA Board of Governors is about to step in, there's going to be new owners in town.
I said this on social media earlier Monday, just being a wise guy, but Laurie and Rodriguez have the chance to do the funniest thing and just miss the payment again. I'm just saying that would be pretty funny. They're not going to do that, obviously, but man, that would be funny. But it is. I think if you had to take the temperature of Wolves fans, I think generally there is an excitement about this. I think they're looking forward to what comes next for this organization. Because Laurie and Rodriguez were largely responsible for hiring Tim Connolly. Now Tim Connolly's in kind of the we hate him phase, but next year he could be back in the everybody loves him phase because they brought him to the Western Conference Finals last year. Like he's they're down on him, they're up on him, they're down on him, but he is a widely regarded good executive who has who's made some very big swings, and I think is generally regarded as good. So like I think people are excited about this in general, but I think there will still be some kind of like some caution in this, or some kind of like we don't know what to expect out of all this.
I think what can you say about Minnesota sports fans that hasn't already been said? I mean,
right.
I don't think there's anything that we walk into with purebred optimism because, and it's funny, I was thinking about this. Now the Pohlads are also, in this process of potentially selling the Twins, but that family's owned that team since whatever, the
84.
80s. Yeah.
84. Yeah.
And then Ziggy and the Wilfs, they come in the early 2000s.
2005, this will be 20 years. Yeah.
So that's around the time of, we just did 20 years. Around the playoffs. That's around the time Craig Leopold.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this is ownership, steady ownership in this has been a predominant part of franchises here. And granted, I mean, teams typically don't trade hands. That's why they're so dang valuable.
Right.
But am I just remove my reporting on this story, which I've been trying to do more from a courts perspective than a sports perspective. But am I, as a Timberwolves fan, removing my journalistic hat here, excited about this? I don't even know that I have an opinion in that regard. I mean, I try to think of what kind of an owner, what do I want for my owners? I never thought of Taylor as cheap. I never thought, he always seemed willing to give the max contracts. I do remember thinking some of his decision-making was like, remember, he wanted to look people in the eye. And I remember Kevin Love.
Andrew Wiggin.
Yeah, but remember Kevin Love, he crumpled up the contract and threw it on the ground. And obviously, he'll never live.
That was David Kahn, though. That was
Kahn. Okay.
That was
so again, it's like, that's the joy. Yeah. Taylor he'll never live down Josh Smith. And, but I think in general, Joe Smith, sorry. I think in general, I look at his ownership as being one of executives that didn't quite pan out, personnel decisions that didn't quite pan out, injuries at the wrong time. Again, more of a curse look, but I never once thought, oh, this guy won't spend. He never got the rap of, say, the Pohlads, which have forever have been hamstrung by that concept. So the idea of like new ownership coming in and breathing, I don't know what the expectation would be that would make them, what makes a great owner. I don't have really good answers for that. The Wilfs, I think people think of them as being relatively good owners.
Yeah.
But what am I supposed to say about billionaires trading assets? I don't have a ton of an opinion on it. I really don't.
I guess the biggest thing we've got here is an end of an era, right? Like if the Pohlads are selling, if this goes through, and Glenn Taylor, who's had the team for 30 years, the Pohlads who had the team for 40 years, it's an end of an era. He did some great things in keeping the team here. And I will say, like, if you're a Lynx fan, I think maybe you're even more skeptical, because this is part of this. And WNBA franchise valuations have gone through the roof the same way NBA, not the same scale, but the same kind of, the same kind of level of scaling up. And he has been a very good Lynx owner. They've won championships. He's been very supportive of that. I don't know what kind of Lynx owners Laurie and Rodriguez will be, but I think that's a question that's a fair one too.
Well, Taylor was foundational, I think, in terms of being a visible proponent of the WNBA and somebody who was early in that wave of inaugural teams, and the fact that team had so much success, and you wonder down the line how much his reputation and the meaning of his ownership here in the Twin Cities will start to kind of lean into that being meaningful, having more meaning than maybe we ever really gave it credit for. I remember when we did that 25th anniversary look at the Lynx, which I did some of that reporting now that I'm thinking about it, but they had wonderful words to say about him. I mean, as a steward for the franchise, and at a time when other franchises were treating people like dirt. I mean, quite literally, just no care whatsoever about the product. I think that is a good point. And, as much as Laurie and Rodriguez have been Timberwolves visible, they haven't been Lynx visible in that way. And Taylor always was. Yeah, he just seemed just as happy to be at those games, and they gave him as much meaning as the Wolves did. So that's a really good point. I think it'll be but again, I have to imagine that I doubt that there will be any instance where they think, oh, we're going to somehow delegitimize this asset. I'm sure that they view the Lynx as being just a wonderful addition to this process. So,
yeah. Well, a lot to sort out, Jeff. We're not going to know all the answers right away. I think the stadium thing, the arena thing will be interesting. I don't know what they're going to want from that, but you have a point to make?
Well, I was just going to say that I do think this is going to become, and we'll see, but you could already see Shams kind of foreshadowing it, that this board of governors thing is about to become interesting. And there's a good reason for that. As you know, I've been talking with Chris Hine all day and all night. That Taylor has a long history in here. We talk about longevity here in the Twin Cities, but this guy has a longevity as being a leader in the NBA, president of the board of governors for several stints. This guy has friends in that room, and I have the provision here. You need a transfer shall only become effective if approved by the affirmative vote of not less than 3/4 of all governors.
Yeah, it's 3/4.
This isn't a half thing. You need to really be able to control the room. And one of the things that you think about with this is, okay, you're already going to lose one of those votes. If Taylor doesn't want this to happen, he still is going to have that. He's going to have that ownership vote in that room. And it'll be interesting to see all of these people who he has longstanding relationships with. Are they going to back him in a power play to try to shut this down? And you go back to when he got the Wolves, he essentially got them because the NBA blocked the sale of the Wolves to that contingent that was going to move him down to New Orleans. So full circle. And it's kind of like conclave or something. I'd like to get a little camera in the room for the vote, a little tally, kind of the Senate floor. What do you think? Can you name another NBA? James Dolan, I guess. I'm trying to think of NBA owners that I know. The one guy in Dallas is getting roasted left and right. But all the NBA owners that I really knew, they all were terrible human beings. I'm thinking like Donald Sterling. I remember he was an owner. I don't know. Does Magic Johnson own a team right now? I don't. Michael Jordan maybe had do the
Maloofs still have the Kings? I don't know.
Seriously, do the Maloofs?
Are you joking? We forget. I don't think so.
I don't. Okay. All right. Anyway, and moving is Target Center a bad stadium? Or arena? I never feel lately since they've done the remodel. I don't hate it.
Okay. It's okay. It is kind of bonkers. They did like $100 million renovation like 7 years ago. Like, is that not good enough? But I don't know. It's all about the money, Jeff. It's all about the money. They want more. And if they had it to do over again, they probably wouldn't have put 60% of the seats in the upper deck at Target Center. I think that probably was a misstep. But they've done some good things. They make it's nice. It's a lot nicer than it used to be. I don't know. It's all fine to me. It's just you got to squeeze it all out of there. You got to squeeze all of that out of the turnip.
It is an incredible sort of contradiction in the marketplace. Here is a franchise that in 4 years has gone from 1.5 billion to 3.1 billion, and we're going to start kind of the second that the team gets sold, everybody's mind goes to, well, what are they going to want from us next? What money do they want from their public? My guess is I would guess that they will not take over the franchise if they get that vote and immediately start asking for money. I think it'd be in pretty poor taste. So anyway,
more to come. When will the Board of Governors? When will this happen? What's the timeline for that? Do we know that?
I have no. I don't. Yeah. Because I think it used to be like this would be around the time that the call option, whenever that was finalized, then the Board of Governors would vote on it. Now you've got the situation. I have no idea. It's a good question. Like, do they need to hash out this final 20%? Or are they going to say, okay, no, first we're going to vote on this, then we're going to move that call option down to another date in the future? And then if that happens, I guess Taylor would all of a sudden be a minority owner for a period of time. Anyway, I think all of this is just a numbers game at this point. We're just waiting to see kind of how this plays out. And also you can tell that the primary players here are being very tight to the vest with whatever is happening. There is not a lot of, at this point, you would have expected more kind of thorough statements or interviews if they were going to be coming. They do not appear to be. No. Take of that what you will. I don't know if that's the NBA trying to kind of, hey, let's just handle this
Sure.
respectfully and step forward. I
Right.
mean, it truly might be something as basic as that.
Yeah.
But it's like I said when we started this, it feels closer to done. But would you be remotely surprised if we were speaking a number of months about, oh my God, here we go again, we're back in this swirl? I do think the NBA, though, if you're the NBA, you want this to get some resolution.
You do, yeah.
And
you
Taylor, for all of his stewardship of the franchise for 30 years or whatever other people would call it, the man is, I think, 83 or 84 years old. There is kind of this question of how long do you want to keep owning a franchise?
Yeah.
What's the succession plan for it?
Right.
And again, this goes back to, you wanted these owners. These people felt like the ones that you wanted to kind of carry you forward. If it's gotten so bad that that's not the case, and he tries to make a play to stop it through the Board of Governors, okay, what next? What exactly do we want to do here? So anyway, we'll see what happens. But fascinating. I love the fact that it has reached this point where basically the franchise is now being moved around privately in a way that the public is sort of removed from the understanding of why is this happening the way that it's happening.
Right.
Yeah, it bothers me a little bit as a fan and as a taxpayer who's pumps money into that arena. But that's probably a different discussion.
Well, the discussion for now is we know what the ruling was at least, and now we can kind of proceed from there. Jeff did terrific work on the story and continued reporting on that. Appreciate your time today, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about this down the road.
Well, and I think I will say that once this sale is completed, we should petition Mr. Taylor to maybe get you a new laptop, because it's clear we've got issues.
It's not his fault. I let the battery die, and I don't know what it's doing now. So we'll figure it out. Maybe it'll just start right up once we're done here.
It's 2024, Mike. Let's get it together.
It's not.
No, it's
2025.
2020. Goodbye. Sign off. Kill it. Goodbye.
Bye, Jeff.